Well, it seemed like everything kind of fell into place. Like you say, I've been a Sinatra fan forever. For decades, Willie Nelson carried a secret that ate at him every day. When Kris Kristofferson passed away, Willie couldn't stay quiet anymore. He admitted that Kris wasn't just his friend or band. He was the reason Willie survived his darkest years. But there's something even more devastating. Willie waited until after Kris died to finally say it out loud. In his own words, he hated himself for never telling Kris the truth. What Willie confessed about those desperate nights will break your heart. Some secrets are too heavy to carry alone. Willie Nelson was born on April 29, 1933, in a tiny Texas town called Abbott. Only about 300 people lived there. It was the middle of the Great Depression, the worst economic crisis in American history. 1 out of every 4 people didn't have a job. And right in the heart of this struggle, Willie's mother left. He was just 6 months old when she walked out to look for work and never came back. Not once. Soon after, his father left, too. Willie and his sister Bobby were left behind, abandoned with no one but their grandparents to take care of them. They moved in with their grandmother Nancy and grandfather Alfred. Nancy taught piano. Alfred worked as a blacksmith. The family had almost nothing. Winters were so cold, they glued newspapers to the walls of their home just to keep out the freezing wind. This was how Willie grew up in a world that was falling apart, surrounded by hunger and heartbreak. By the time he was 7, Willie was picking cotton in the Texas heat after school just to help buy food. That same year, he nearly died. He caught pneumonia in 1940, a sickness that was killing children everywhere. Medicine wasn't good back then, and thousands of kids died every year. Willie was lucky to survive. That sickness nearly took him, but it also left something in him, a toughness that would carry him through the hardest parts of his life. When he was 6, something happened that changed everything. His grandfather gave him a guitar. It wasn't fancy, just a cheap one they could barely afford. But the moment Willie touched it, something clicked. By 7, he was already writing songs. His first one was probably a little gospel tune, something simple. Not Pretty Paper that came much later in 1963, but even as a child, music gave him a way to survive. By 10, he was already playing in local bars. He made more money than most adults picking cotton. This little boy in dusty overalls had become a musical prodigy, but his world at home wasn't free. His grandmother was deeply religious. She went to the Methodist church that had stood in Abbott since 1899. She didn't allow dancing. She thought it was a sin. Every Sunday, Willie sang in the choir, acting like the perfect church boy. But secretly, he drank beer and smoked cigarettes. He was terrified, thinking he'd go to hell. And while his grandmother prayed, he listened to Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys on the radio. Music she would have called the devil's work. Years later, in a strange twist, Willie bought that same church to save it from being shut down. Then came a heartbreak he never forgot. In 1939, when Willie was only 6, his grandfather, Alfred, died from pneumonia. The man who had raised him, taught him guitar, and loved him like a father, was suddenly gone. Willie said it was like losing the sun. After that, life got even harder. He had to milk cows every morning before school and worked long hours just to keep going. That loss lit a fire inside him. He became more stubborn, more independent. He started living by his own rules. That's where the outlaw spirit began. In 1950, when Willie was 17, he joined the U.S. Air Force right after finishing high school. He wanted to serve his country, but after just 9 months, his back gave out. He got hurt lifting heavy equipment. The injury was so bad they had to discharge him. Just like that, his dream of a military life was over. With no money and no direction, he turned back to music. In 1956, he moved to Vancouver, Washington, and took a job as a radio DJ at Caven. There, he recorded his first single called No Place for Me. He added a song called Lumberjack on the other side. He even created his own label, Willie Nelson Records, and sold the records himself along with autographed photos for $1. Starred Records didn't want to release it, but that didn't stop him. He sold 3,000 copies just by talking to people through his radio show. Even with this small success, money was tight. He worked late nights, cleaned dishes, and even tried to join a show called the Ozark Jubilee, but got turned down. Eventually, he gave up and went back to Texas. There he sold Bibles and vacuum cleaners just to feed his family. He even worked as a sales manager for Encyclopedia Americana. Life was brutal, but all that pain showed up later in his songs. In Fort Worth, he started playing in wild honky-tonk bars. These places were loud and violent. Fights broke out every night. Willie needed protection just to survive, so he hired Paul English to play drums and watch his back. Paul looked scary with a devilish goatee and a habit of carrying guns. Together they made sure no one messed with them. Willie even got into fights himself when drunk strangers tried to control his music. But these rough nights taught him how to control a crowd and how to survive. The music business. Then came a moment that broke his heart but changed his path. In 1959, he was broke and facing eviction, so he sold a song he wrote called Family Bible for just $50. That same song became a massive hit for another artist. Around that time, he also sold Nightlife for $150. Both songs made tons of money, but not for him. He learned a hard truth. Always own your songs. That lesson would help him build wealth later. By 1960 he moved to Nashville. He was nearly 30, cold, broke, and sleeping in his car. One snowy night, he was so low, he laid down in the snow and waited to die. A friend found him just in time. Then, a man named Harlan Howard heard his music at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge. He convinced a company called Pamper Music to hire Willie for $50 a week. That tiny paycheck saved his life. He wrote Crazy for Patsy Cline. Her husband had been playing Willie's songs non-stop, and she hated it until she finally listened to Crazy. The song became her biggest hit and a crossover sensation. But Willie barely made any money. The record labels took most of it. That betrayal made him hate the Nashville system. He started pulling away from it. In 1962, he released his first album, and Then I Wrote. It had big songs like Crazy and Funny How Time Slips Away. But the album didn't sell. People loved the songs, but not when Willie sang them. He had to go back to selling Bibles just to eat. Everyone else was getting rich off his music. He was still broke. He got another chance when Liberty Records released Touch Me in 1962. It reached number 7 on the country charts. But Willie didn't want to follow the same polished sound that everyone else used. He wanted control. Liberty didn't like that, so they dropped him. Even with chart success, he was left with nothing. In 1963, he joined Ray Price's band as a bass player. Even though he didn't really know how to play bass, it gave him the chance to tour and learn the stage. But during this time, he drank heavily. One night, he got into a bad car crash. It nearly killed him. He started realizing he had to face his demons. Though it would take years, Willie Nelson wasn't supposed to become a movie star. But in 1979, everything changed when he appeared next to Robert Redford in The Electric Horseman. Nobody expected the quiet country singer to shine on camera. Yet, he did something that shocked everyone. He didn't follow the script. He made up his lines while high on marijuana, and somehow, it worked. The $12 million movie became a hit, and Willie didn't even pretend to be someone else. He just acted like himself, wild and unpredictable. That was the moment he showed the world he was more than just a voice with a guitar. But the road to that moment had started years earlier, after his heartbreaking rejection in Nashville. In 1972, RCA Records let him go. No one wanted his sound, so Willie left. He returned to Texas, and that's when everything began to shift. He found a strange music scene in Austin, filled with hippies, long hair, and open minds. There was a little venue called Armadillo World Headquarters where cowboys and outlaws mixed with tie-dye and peace signs, and Willie fit right in. In early 1973, he sat in a New York hotel bathroom, grabbed a sanitary pad box, and scribbled the lyrics to Shotgun Willie. That crude moment became his new beginning. The album didn't do well nationally, but in Austin, it outsold everything he'd ever made. It only reached number 41 on the charts, but it sparked a fire. The outlaw country movement was born. 2 years later, in 1975, he did something nobody expected. With just $4,000 and full creative control, he recorded Redheaded Stranger in a small studio in Texas. The label hated it. They said it sounded like demos, but Willie refused to change a thing. The album came out just as he made it. It went multi-platinum. His cover of Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain became his first #1 hit. He hadn't had a top 10 hit in 13 years. That one song won him his first Grammy. He proved that raw, honest music could beat the polished Nashville machine. But success came with shadows. In 1976, he joined Waylon Jennings on an album called Wanted, The Outlaws. It was a mix of old songs and a few new ones. Nobody thought it would matter, but it became the first country album to sell 1 million copies. It shocked everyone. It reached number 10 on the pop charts. Suddenly, Nashville had to take the Outlaws seriously. The next year, in 1977, Willie's outlaw image took a strange turn. He got arrested in the Bahamas. Customs officers found marijuana in his jeans. He went to jail. His friend Hank Cochran brought him beer in the cell. Willie celebrated his release by jumping in the air and landed in the emergency room. The judge dropped the charges, but banned him from the Bahamas forever. That ban still hasn't been lifted. In 1981, while swimming in Hawaii, Willie felt a sharp pain in his chest. His lung had collapsed. Doctors said it was from smoking 2 or 3 packs of cigarettes a day. He had to cancel 18 concerts, losing nearly $900,000. After that, he stopped smoking tobacco, but continued using marijuana. Years later, he switched to vaporizers to save what was left of his lungs. In 1984, he was invited to Johnny Cash's Christmas special in Switzerland. After filming, he sat around with Johnny Whalen and Kristofferson. They started playing songs. By the time they flew home, they had decided to form a band. They called themselves the Highwaymen. In 1985, their album Highwaymen came out. It went platinum. It was a dream group of legends who felt left out of modern radio. But not everyone liked their name. In 1990, a 1960s folk group called the Highwaymen sued them. One of their members had become a federal judge, but the lawsuit failed. The country legends kept their name and finished their tour. That same year, Willie's world collapsed. The IRS said he owed $32 million in back taxes. It was one of the worst financial disasters in music history. His accounting firm, Price Waterhouse, had put his money in illegal tax shelters. The IRS took his ranch, studio, piano, and gold records. His daughter hid his guitar trigger in Hawaii, so they wouldn't take that, too. Friends had to buy his things back from auctions and rent them to him. He was homeless, broke, and humiliated. To pay the debt, Willie did something no one had ever done. He made an album called The IRS Tapes, Who Will Buy My Memories? It was just him and his guitar. Every copy sold sent money directly to the IRS. It didn't erase the whole debt, but it helped, and it made history. That wasn't his only public battle. In 1994, police found him asleep in his Mercedes on a Texas highway. In the ashtray was a marijuana joint. He was arrested again, but instead of hiding it, Willie started speaking out for marijuana reform. He turned his arrest into a message. Even as his public life spiraled, personal pain struck harder. On Christmas Day in 1991, his son Billy died by suicide. Billy was only 33. He had bought new clothes and gotten a haircut just the day before. He had been struggling with depression. Willie was on tour and dealing with the IRS nightmare at the same time. The loss nearly broke him. He said those were his darkest days. His family life had already been torn apart. His third wife, Connie, discovered he had fathered a child with another woman after finding a hospital bill. They divorced in 1988. By 1991, he married Annie D'Angelo, his fourth wife. Willie later admitted he had a gift for making things complicated. Even his charity work didn't escape controversy. He had started Farm Aid in 1985 to help family farmers. They raised $12 million in 3 years. But during his tax crisis, people accused him of using the charity for tax breaks. Willie kept performing, but by 1995, he admitted that most of the money went to farmers who were already losing their land. The system was broken, and he couldn't fix it. The system was broken, and he couldn't fix it. Still, he never stopped making music. At 65 years old, he released an album that sounded like nothing he had done before. It was called Tetro, and it came out on September 1, 1998. He didn't record it in a studio like most artists. He recorded it inside an old movie theater in Oxnard, California. That strange choice gave the album a haunting feeling. The sound was stripped down but full of drums and atmosphere. Emmylou Harris sang in the background, and the whole thing felt dreamy and raw. Willie even went back to songs he had written in the 1960s. Like Darkness on the Face of the Earth and My Own Peculiar Way, and gave them new life. A filmmaker named Wim Wenders thought the sessions were so unique he made a documentary about them. The album didn't win any Grammys when it came out, but it showed something even more powerful. It showed that Willie wasn't afraid not of aging, not of change, not of breaking every rule of country music. When Tetro got reissued in 2017 with 7 new songs, people realized how much it had stood the test of time. Then came something even more shocking in 2008. On June 14th, fans were stunned when Willie Nelson, now 75 years old, appeared on a song with Snoop Dogg. The track was called My Medicine, and it was a mix of country and rap. It was produced by Everlast, and the music video quickly went viral. Seeing the red-headed stranger rapping beside a West Coast icon was more than just surprising. It made people talk. Some older country fans were furious. They didn't want their clean-cut hero mixing with someone famous for explicit lyrics, but younger fans loved it. The collaboration reached number 39 on the Dutch charts and proved one thing clearly. Willie didn't care about staying inside the box. He cared about staying real. And this move showed how hip-hop and country could overlap when the message was strong enough. In 2015, something happened that should have been a moment of pure celebration. Willie Nelson received the Gershwin Prize from the Library of Congress. He was 82 years old and still performing in front of a packed house in Washington, D.C., singing on the road again. But during this proud moment, news broke about something deeply personal. Willie had gone through an experimental stem cell surgery just weeks earlier. His lungs were badly damaged. He had suffered from emphysema, smoked cigarettes for years, and fought pneumonia several times. He told the Washington Post that his lungs were really screwed up. Doctors took stem cells from his own body and injected them into his lungs, hoping to regrow healthy tissue. He had to cancel some concerts to recover, and the stomach incisions made it hard for him to carry his guitar. But he came back to the stage within weeks. That wasn't just bravery. It was defiance. At an age when most people stop everything, Willie kept singing, and the world kept listening. By 2020, Willie had received 52 Grammy nominations since 1974. That made him one of the most nominated artists in Grammy history. In 2020, he won his 10th Grammy for Ride Me Back Home in the Best Country Solo Performance category. In 2018, he won Best Country Album for My Way. And in 2016, he won Best Traditional Pop Vocal Album for Summertime. Willie Nelson sings Gershwin. Back in 2007, he also picked up Best Country Collaboration for Lost Highway. He was now ranked 14th on the list of artists with the most Grammy nominations, sitting behind legends like Quincy Jones, Paul McCartney, and Jay-Z. But what made this even more powerful was how he won these awards in his late 70s and 80s. He didn't just keep going. He kept growing. He tried jazz, pop standards, country duets, and even rap. He never locked himself inside one sound. That's why his story isn't just about country music. It's about fearless art. Meanwhile, Willie Nelson was already a legend when he met Annie D. But deep down he was falling apart. His drinking had become dangerous. He was slowly destroying himself. Even though the world still saw a smiling country star, in 1991, when he married Annie, everything began to change. She wasn't just his wife. She became the one person who could save him from himself. Annie had met him years earlier on a film set working as a makeup artist. By the time they married, she knew exactly what kind of pain he carried and how close he was to losing it all. She told him straight, no more drinking, no more excuses. In a 2024 interview, she repeated the family rule she made for him. Don't be a goddamn asshole. Willie listened. He quit drinking and smoking and turned to cannabis instead. He said it helped him feel alive again.